Gumba, the hero. There was once a fatherless boy named Gumba. His occupation was to tend the king's goats. He and his mother lived in a small house at the end of the street in which the king's palace was situated. The king's mahout was in the habit of taking his elephant along that street, and every time it passed, it rubbed itself against the wall of Gumba's house. One day at noon, it so happened that Gumba was at home when the elephant was being taken to the tank to drink. And as usual, he rubbed his side against the house as he passed. Gumba was incensed with the elephant for thus destroying his house, and coming out quickly, said to the mahout, "What although it is the king's elephant? I could take hold of any person's elephant by the trunk and throw it across 7 seas. The elephant understood what Gumba had said, and he refused to go down into the water and would not even drink. On being brought home, he would not eat his grain, nor would he so much as look at water. He continued thus so long that he began to grow lean and weak. The mahout knew that it was Gumba's curse that had so affected his charge. The king, one day, noticing the altered condition of his elephant, said to the mahout, "Why has the elephant become so emaciated?" The mahout replied, "Oh, king, one day at noon, Gumba abused him. He said, 'If you were not the king's elephant, I would take you by the trunk and throw you across 7 seas. Every day,' he said, 'he rubs himself against my house. Since then, the elephant has refused his food and water.' The king, on hearing this, commanded that Gumba be brought before him. The messenger found him at home and brought him into the presence of the king, who asked him, 'Is it true, Gumba, that you said you would throw the elephant as you would a stone?' Gumba replied, 'Yes, it is quite true that I said so. The elephant, every time it passes along the street, rubs itself against the wall of my house, and being angry, I said these words, 'Now, do with me whatsoever you please.' The king marveled greatly on hearing Gumba's reply, and addressing him said, 'Now, my boy, prove your words, for prove them you must. If you succeed in thus throwing an elephant, I shall present you with a large estate.' The king appointed the 10th day, following as that on which Gumba should wrestle with the elephant. And he, after receiving permission from the king, returned home. The king, in the interval, caused proclamation to be made to all his subjects, ordering them to be present on the day when Gumba was to meet the elephant in mortal combat. On the morning of the appointed day, Gumba was found baking bread. As he did not appear punctually in the arena, the king sent a messenger to bring him. On arriving at Gumba's house, he found him baking bread. He said to him, "Come along, the king has asked for you." Gumba said, "Wait a little till I partake of some refreshment." He invited the messenger to be seated, and he also sat down as if to eat. But instead of eating the bread, he began to throw it at the man, and continued doing so until he had buried him under 8 maws of loaves. The poor fellow cried out, "Oh, Gumba, come and release me. Of a truth I am almost crushed to death under this heap of bread." He removed the bread from above him, and he immediately returned to the king. As he was leaving the house, he saw mounds of cooked rice, evidently intended for Gumba's dinner. Coming into the presence of the king, he said, "Oh, king, I saw in Gumba's house 12 maws of cooked rice." And he threw a loaf of bread, weighing 8 maws at me, which almost crushed me to death. It is quite possible that he may win. At length, Gumba came bringing with him a sledgehammer weighing 12 maws and a shield of the same weight. The contest was to take place on a plain sufficiently large to accommodate an immense number of spectators. Then the fight began. The two combatants attacked each other so furiously that they raised such a cloud of dust as to completely conceal them from the onlookers. The elephant could not long sustain the unequal combat, and when he was beaten, Gumba seized him by the trunk and threw him over the seas. Owing to the darkness caused by the clouds of dust, none of the thousands present noticed the elephant as he went, flying over their heads high up in the air. When the dust subsided, Gumba was found sitting alone. The elephant was nowhere to be seen. The king called the victor to him and said, "What have you done with the elephant?" Gumba replied, "I flung him early in the forenoon over 7 seas." Hearing his answer and not seeing the elephant, they all marveled greatly. The king then said to Gumba, "Well, you have thrown the elephant somewhere. You must now go in search of its bones." Gumba went home and said to his mother, "Make up a parcel of food for me. I am going to find the elephant's bones." She complied with his request, and he set out. As he hurried along intent upon his quest, he found a man fishing with a palmyra palm tree as a rod and a full-grown elephant as a bait. On seeing him, Gumba exclaimed, "You are indeed a great hero." The man replied, "I am no hero. The widow's son, Gumba, is the great hero, for did not he fling the king's elephant across 7 seas?" Gumba said, "I am he." The fisherman said, "I will go with you." Gumba replied, "Come along." As Gumba and his attendant went on their way, they came to a field in which a number of men were hoeing, and their master, to shield them from the heat of the sun, stood holding over them as an umbrella a large pepple tree. Gumba, seeing him, said, "You are a hero and no mistake." The man replied, "No, indeed, I am no hero. Gumba, the widow's son, threw the king's elephant across 7 seas. He is the hero." Gumba said, "I am he." "Then," said the man, "I also will go with you." "Follow me," said Gumba, and the 3 proceeded on their way. As they journeyed, they fell in with two men who were raising water from a tank for irrigating purposes by merely singing. When Gumba saw them, he exclaimed, "You two are heroes indeed." They answered, "What do you see heroic in us?" "There is one hero, Gumba by name. He threw a king's elephant across 7 seas. Gumba said, "I am he." The men exclaimed, "We also will follow you." Gumba said, "Follow." And the 5 men went forth to search for the elephant's bones. On and on they went until they reached the sea, which they crossed, and entered the primeval forest beyond. Selecting a suitable place, they encamped and began the search for the elephant's bones. The first day, the fisherman was left in the camp to cook the food, while the others went out into the forest. Nearby, a certain older king resided in a cave in a rock. He came to the camp just as the food was cooked and said to the fisherman, "Give me some rice to eat." He declined, and the older king then said, "Will you give me rice, or will you fight with me?" He replied, "I have prepared this food with difficulty and prefer fighting to giving it up." So they fought, and the older king was victor. He laid a heavy stone on the breast of the cook and then devoured all the food. There had been 12 mons of rice prepared, and he left none. After a long time, he released his victim and then went his way. Being released, the fisherman set about preparing more food. But before it was ready, his companions returned, and seeing the pot still on the fire, they inquired why he had not made haste with his cooking. He replied, "I have not been idle. I have spent all the time in cooking." He did not tell them about the older king having been at the camp. The next day, another of the company remained as cook, while the others went out to search in the forest for the elephant's bones. The older king again visited the camp, and the scene of the previous day was reenacted. But he also did not speak of the visit of the older king to the others when they returned. In this way, the older king encountered each in turn till only Gumba was left, and he remained in the camp to cook. When he had got the rice cooked, the older king made his appearance and said, "Will you fight with me, or will you give up the food?" Gumba replied, "I will not give you the food. I have spent much time in cooking it, and when those who have gone in search of the elephant's bones return, what shall I set before them if I give it to you now? You have played this trick every day and have put my companions to much trouble, but today we have met." So they fought. Gumba overpowered the older king and killed him with the stone he used to put upon the breast of those whom he vanquished. He then espoused the older king's wife and took possession of his kingdom. Gumba's companions held him in great awe, because each in turn had been conquered by the older king. But Gumba had experienced little difficulty in putting him to death. Gumba became king of that country, and And when he had settled his affairs, he sent for his mother to come and reside with him. The king, whom Gumba had previously served, sought his friendship and withdrew his command to Gumba to search for the elephant's bones until he found them. The prowess of Gumba caused him to deprecate his anger. He said, "If I offend him, he will kill me as he did the older king, and take my wife and kingdom as he did his." And now this story ends. Hey, thank you so much for listening to the whole story. If you liked this story and want to thank me for creating this story, then you can buy me a cup of tasty coffee. Just join our YouTube channel and be an official member of our family to support us for making even more interesting story videos for you every day. You know, it takes a lot of effort, research, and money to find and buy premium contents, and to writing, creating, editing, organizing, and publishing every single video, which could melt your hearts or could be one of the most interesting stories of all time. So, hit the like button to save this video. And most importantly, subscribe to our YouTube channel to learn English by watching super interesting English stories every day. Thank you.